I've already accepted the fact that I'm gonna get burned at the stake for this one. The Amazing Digital Circus is a YouTube animation series created by Gooseworks and published by Glitch Productions. And if you've been on YouTube at all in the past month or so, you'd have at least heard of it. And that probably also tells you why I'm so sure that I'm going to be cast into the lake of fire for making this video. For you see, The Amazing Digital Circus is just that. It's amazing. It took the entirety of YouTube by storm with its wacky characters, goofy dialogue, and a premise allowing for so much lore that I'm sure MatPat was frothing at the mouth. And on top of all that, has utilized the key character trait that appeals to the majority of internet goers in recent times, mental illness. So I can see you asking, why, Sue, do you acknowledge all of that and are still making this video that's inevitably going to land you next to the likes of Judas, Brutus, and Cassius at the bottom of the inferno? Because the amount of people mindlessly praising this show was genuinely getting to my nerves. Yes, I get it. It comes from two very reputable sources of animation content. There's tons of lore and small details, and all the characters are super relatable, and the pacing is so fast it can be described with power scaling terms. So there's obviously going to be a lot of hype around it, and a lot of people are going to love it right off the bat. But that's kind of all it has. And this is where I'd like to say that this video is probably going to age like milk, because it so happens that there's only one episode out right now at the writing of this script. So all my criticisms are going to be on the pilot episode and not the show as a whole. And because of this, I'd like to reiterate that this is entirely my opinion. Plenty of my friends enjoy this show, and plenty of my friends don't as well. I'm just here to give my thoughts because, well, this is my YouTube channel. So let's go back to the part before I had to break the immersion of me being an irredeemable asshole and start with the immersion of the digital circus, or rather, the complete and utter lack of it. I don't think I'm alone when I say that a constant string of Gen Z jokes and slapstick pacing makes a story just less enjoyable. It feels less like I'm being told a story and more like I'm watching a Maxor video after someone had replaced my Cheetos with some questionable mushrooms. And I get it. The show is supposed to feel crazy and wacky and somewhat questionable, but there's ways to do that aren't a constant bombardment of sound effects, shitty Marvel one-liners, and the main character going insane. And I'll admit, Murder Drones, another one of Glitch's shows that I thoroughly enjoy watching, suffered a good bit of this in their early episodes as well, with parts of the first episode feeling incredibly cheesy, cringeworthy, and most definitely immersion-breaking. And that kind of style does seem to be what Glitch is known and loved for. Which then brings us to the difference between these two shows, that being the fact that Murder Drones introduces a proper story in its pilot. Murder Drones is rather simple. There's two kinds of drones, worker drones and murder drones, and the characters have to kind of figure out what's going on behind the scenes, as it seems like neither side has the full story. It gives us the main cast, a conflict, and an inciting incident that tells us what the show is going to be about going forward. And Digital Circus has some traces of these things. There's clearly something going on behind the scenes with Kane not telling the cast anything, and there's some sort of incident that manifests in the form of the clown character turning into this fucking abomination off screen and attacking everyone. But when every important question is thrown aside by Kane screaming at the top of his lungs for some cheap humor points, and every somewhat dramatic moment is completely stomped on by a sarcastic comment from Jax, it becomes ridiculously hard to stay invested in the show, even just in the span of a 25-minute long episode. They still get the point across. Kane is hiding things, and Jax is a selfish, straight man character who is tired of everything. And all of this somewhat makes sense in the context of this being a digital space created by a guy who manifests himself as a sentient set of dentures and is inherently silly. It feels like The Amazing Digital Circus was created with internet popularity in mind, appealing to short, snappy humor that hits like a slap to the face, and having enough room for theories to let the ARG fans build their dream homes in. And in doing so, it's ended up sacrificing a great deal of its ability to tell its story. Essentially, the pilot episode's plot boiled down to weird headsets put you in here and you can't get out, here's the world you live in, you turn into glitchy monsters if you go insane, also everyone is insane, okay bye. There's almost no idea what comes next in the story, no setup of any actual conflict, and the inciting incident incites nothing. It's like in creating a story set in a glitchy virtual world, they've somehow gone and corrupted the folder containing the plot. For all we know, the next episode could be the exact same thing as the first and nobody would question it because there's no real next episode set up here. It feels like a one-shot manga, something that's meant to test the waters to see if there's any worth in continuing the process of creating the story, But you can see how that doesn't really make sense in the context of a Glitch Productions show. I mean, fuck, they've already got merch out for this thing after one episode. But, I mean, even if the plot isn't really clear, we spent the entire episode with this cast of characters, surely they make up for it somewhat, right? Yeah, fuck it, I'm too deep to pull back now. No. Not when 3 of the 6 cast members introduced are completely and utterly forgettable. The Puppet Master is the annoying orange if you gave him creative mode, the chess piece talks like a traumatized nerd emoji, the rabbit's entire character is being an asswad, and the main character's only trait is having a consistent panic attack throughout the entire episode. And I get it. It's hard to create characters that aren't tropey and generic nowadays just due to how many stories are out there, and I personally understand the struggle. But when your characters and your entire show is riding off of the minigun shooting jokes at the audience, there's not much room for one to save the other. And now, I'd like to round things off by saying, again, that obviously this is all just going off of the pilot episode. It's very possible for a show to have a mediocre pilot and still end up being good. So I'm not saying the entire thing is going to be crap just off of one episode, but as of what we've seen so far, everything I've said in this video still stands. If you've somehow made it this far into the video and aren't overcome with the overwhelming urge to take hold of my neck and dunk me in a vat of acid repeatedly, consider leaving a like and subscribing. It'll help my confidence after I get absolutely ripped to shreds by the other people watching this video. With that, my name is Sue, and I'll see you guys next time.